The balance on the screen said $42. I stared at it long enough that the screen dimmed and locked. I unlocked it. Stared again. $42. In an account I had been depositing into every single month for 4 years. I remember setting my phone face down on the kitchen counter. Not throwing it. Not yelling. Just placing it down very carefully, like it was something fragile. And then I stood there in my kitchen at 6 in the morning, still in yesterday's clothes, and I thought, there has to be a mistake. But I need to go back. Because none of this makes sense without what came before. I was 26 when I opened that savings account. I had just started a decent job, project coordinator at a mid-sized logistics firm, nothing glamorous, but it was real money for the first time in my adult life. I made myself a rule on day one. 10% of every paycheck goes into savings. Automatic transfer every other Friday. I would not touch it. It was for a house. My house. The first thing in my life that would be entirely, completely mine. My mother knew about the account. I told her about it the same day I opened it, sitting at her kitchen table on a Sunday, eating the eggs she always made with too much butter and not enough salt. She smiled at me when I told her this wide, proud smile, and she squeezed my hand across the table and said, "That's my responsible one. I want you to hold onto that image." Her hand on mine. That smile. Because it matters. My mother and I were close in the way that only children and single parents can be close, tangled, sometimes suffocating, but genuinely loving. My father had left when I was 8. She had worked retail for 11 years to keep us in our apartment, then switched to a front desk job at a dental office. She was not a wealthy woman. She was not even a comfortable woman. But she was my mother, and I never once questioned her. I gave her my banking login when I was 23. She needed to transfer money back to me after covering a car repair I couldn't afford, and it was easier than dealing with wire transfers. I never changed the password. Why would I? Can you imagine sitting across from someone at Sunday breakfast, not knowing? For 4 years, that account grew the way I planned. I watched it climb slowly, methodically. 5,000, 12,000, 18,000. By my calculations, I should have had somewhere close to $23,000 saved by the morning I stood in my kitchen staring at that number on my phone. $42. The transaction history loaded slowly. I remember watching the little spinning wheel and thinking, irrationally, that maybe the page would load and everything would make sense. A bank error. A glitch. Something clean and fixable. It loaded. I scrolled up to the oldest transactions I could find. Withdrawals. Not every week, she was smarter than that. Every 3 or 4 weeks. Amounts between $200 and $800, never the same number twice. Labeled simply as transfer, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. I sat on my kitchen floor. I did not cry. I want to be specific about that. I did not cry. I just sat on the cold tile with my back against the cabinet and read the list of dates like I was memorizing them. 37 withdrawals over 41 months. Not a single month from when I'd first opened the account. She had waited 4 months before the first one. Waited until there was something worth taking. What I found next changed everything. I called my aunt, my mother's younger sister, that same evening. I did not mention what I had found yet. I kept my voice light and asked how things were, and then, carefully, I asked how my mother was doing. Whether she'd seemed stressed lately. My aunt was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I thought you knew about the card stuff." I asked her what card stuff. She hesitated in the way people hesitate when they realize they have said the wrong thing, and there is no way back. She told me that 2 years ago, my mother had taken out a credit card in her own name and maxed it out. $12,000. She had been paying the minimum for 2 years, and the interest had nearly doubled it. She thought I knew. She thought my mother had told me. She thought, and this is the part that landed like something physical, she thought I had been helping. I said, of course. Yes, I've been helping. I hung up and sat in my car in the parking garage below my office building for 40 minutes. Did not move. Did not answer my phone when it rang once, twice. Just sat there watching the concrete pillar in front of me like it was going to tell me something. Because here is what I understood now in the parking garage, with my hands in my lap. My mother had not taken the money for groceries. She had not taken it for rent. She had taken it to service a debt she had created, and she had created that debt because she had spent $12,000 on something, and I still did not know what. While I was faithfully depositing 10% of every paycheck into an account I believed was building my future. I thought I was the victim. I wasn't entirely wrong, but I wasn't entirely right either. And the rest of what I found would take me another week to understand. I did not confront her immediately. I want to be clear about why. It wasn't fear. It wasn't uncertainty about what I'd found. It was something more deliberate than that. I needed to know the full shape of it before I walked into that room. Because if I went to her half-informed, she would fill in the gaps herself, and I would never know which version was true. I called my bank. I asked them to walk me through the authorization history on my account, specifically, who had initiated each transfer and from which device. The woman on the phone was thorough. She told me that the transfers had been initiated through the mobile app, from a device registered to my account 4 years ago. The device had never been removed. 4 years ago, right after I gave her the login, she had been logging in from her own phone, on an account she had never been removed from for 4 years. 4 years. Moving money in amounts small enough to feel unremarkable, large enough over time to leave me with $42. I asked the bank to revoke all external device access. The woman said she would flag the account for review given the pattern of transfers. I thanked her. I was calm. I was so calm that I frightened myself a little, thinking back. Then I called my aunt again. This time I told her what I knew. All of it. She was silent for a long time after I finished. She said the money was for the casino. She said it the way people say things they have been holding too long, with relief and guilt at exactly the same time. My mother had developed a gambling habit. Not dramatic, not movies and neon. Just a habit. Twice a month, sometimes 3 times. A slot machine casino 40 minutes outside of town. She had started going 3 years ago, after a rough winter, when a coworker had invited her to celebrate a birthday there. She had never really stopped. The credit card was for the casino, and when the card was maxed, she had found another way to keep going. My account had been her other way. I thought about the Sunday breakfasts, the eggs with too much butter, the hand on mine across the table. That's my responsible one. I drove to her house on a Saturday morning. I did not call ahead. I brought nothing, no papers, no screenshots, no evidence I had organized the night before. I didn't need it. I had been inside the shape of this long enough that I could see the whole thing in the dark. She answered the door in her robe. It was 10 in the morning. She smiled when she saw me. You should have called, she said. I would have made breakfast. I know, I said. That's why I didn't call. The smile changed. Just slightly. I watched her adjust. We sat in her living room. She had the television on low, a home renovation show, someone tearing up floors. She reached for the remote to turn it off and I said, leave it. I don't know why. I just didn't want silence. I said I checked my savings account on Thursday. She looked at me. Her face did not collapse. That was the thing I was not prepared for. She did not look like a person caught. She looked like a person who had been waiting. She said I was going to tell you. When, I said. She didn't answer. How much are you ahead, I said. From the casino. Over 3 years. How much are you up? She looked at the television. The couple on screen was pulling up hardwood floors, finding rot underneath. That's what I thought, I said. She said I needed help and I didn't know how to ask. Her voice was quiet. Not ashamed, quiet. There's a difference. You didn't ask, I said. You took. For 4 years you took. Without asking. Without telling. While I thought I was building something, I was going to pay it back. How, I said. With what money? She didn't answer that either. I told her what I knew, the amounts, the dates, the device authorization, the credit card, the casino. All of it laid out in the same flat voice I'd been practicing since the parking garage. I watched her face move through something, not remorse exactly, but recognition. The recognition of someone who has been fully seen and cannot pretend otherwise. When I finished, the room was quiet except for the television. She said, "I'm sorry." I said, "I know." I stood up. She looked up at me from the couch. "Are you going to forgive me?" she said. "Not today," I said. I left. I filed a formal dispute with my bank the following Monday. Given the documented pattern of unauthorized transfers from a device I had revoked access to, and with my authorization on record that I had not approved the transactions, they opened an investigation. 6 weeks later, they recovered $14,000, the portion they could trace through their fraud recovery process, and a settlement from a linked account my mother had not fully emptied. Not everything. Not 23,000, but 14. It went back into a new account, one she has no record of, one with a password I have never said aloud. I did not take her to court. Not because I forgave her, not then, not quickly, but because I understood something about destruction and what it costs the person doing the destroying. A court case would have consumed another year of my life. The $14,000 was real. The court case would have been theater. My aunt called me a month later to tell me my mother had started attending a support group. Gambling addiction. Every Wednesday evening in the basement of a Lutheran church 20 minutes from her house. She had also started seeing a financial counselor and had set up a repayment plan for the credit card debt. I don't know if that changes anything. I genuinely don't know yet. What I know is that she chose, on her own, without my asking, to start doing the hard thing. That matters to me. Not enough to undo it. Not enough to call her and pretend the Sunday breakfasts are the same. But it matters. I bought a house this past spring, smaller than I'd planned. A 2-bedroom in a neighborhood I actually love, with a yard that backs up against a tree line. I moved in on a Friday and spent the first night alone in an empty room, on an air mattress, listening to the house settle around me. It did not feel like revenge. It felt quieter than that. It felt like something I had built, finally out of reach.